Welcome back to another episode of The Hit. My name is James Layton, CEO and founder of Anderson James. This is the podcast where every single week I bring you a leader from our sector to discuss some of the biggest challenges in UK housing today. Today I was delighted to be joined by Gail Teasdale, Chief Executive of Broadacres Housing. It was nice to talk to Gail about the subtle differences between being a rural housing provider. We talk about Gail's opinion of the difference between customer service and customer experience, how an important business intelligence and data plays in Broadacre, and finally how important it is to continue building more homes, especially in rural settings, and the challenges they face in delivering that more rurally. I hope you enjoy this episode, and if you do, I'd ask that you like and subscribe. Gail, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, James. Nice to be here.
I'm excited for this. As we always like to start, do you mind just giving us an introduction for the listeners, please?
A little bit about myself. So I trained as an accountant, boo hiss, and quite quickly after qualifying went into industry. So I spent most of my formative career in heavy engineering and manufacturing. So I like to see things, the boxes coming in and something different going out. And then I fell into housing. Somebody asked me if I would go and do a specific piece of work. I did. And while I was doing it, somebody at the Almo in Leeds said, nobody ever leaves housing. Once they've joined, you get to leave. And I thought, well, I've left lots of different industries. And you know what? Here I am, nigh on 20 years later, and I'm still in housing. So I think I have to say now I'm a housing person.
Love that. And 5 years now as CEO of Broadacres, is that right?
Yeah, sometimes fly. I don't know whether it's the impact of COVID, but it's just like, it feels like it's gone in a blink of an eye and then not. And it's like time entered a weird time warp, didn't it?
I still say to people, last year, 2021, and they go, what? Like, you still, no, we're miles past that. So how do you reflect on that 5 years, or how do you reflect on your 20 years, as you said, in housing?
I think the 5 years at Broadacres have been unbelievably rewarding. It is a great place to work. It's where I'm from, so operating in the environment where you grew up is great. And I think it's just nice to have changed an organisation. It's not just down to me. I mean, it is the team, obviously. But when I arrived, it was a G3, V2 organisation, well on the naughty step. Did it have a future? Wasn't particularly well respected by the local stakeholders. It was very insular, and then insular within itself. However, there were some great building blocks, things to build on. I always ask people what they think when they come to the organisation. Visiting. Can't do that now post-COVID. The world's just changed. But people always just say it's really nice here, and yeah, the building blocks were there. The culture was nice. People really cared. And they really loved working in this area. So we had some great stuff to build on, and we came up with a corporate strategy that customers were really involved in. It gave a real purpose that joined us all together. We worked on all that stuff with the regulator, sorted out all those bits. But we came together as an organisation and stopped having that silo working. And we worked really hard at some of our developments. We work in a rural area. I always point at my map. No matter how many times I get on a Teams meeting or whatever, I always point at the map. It is a sparse area. And what you do really resonates across the whole area. There's that theory, isn't there, the 7 degrees of separation. Well, in North Yorkshire, work on 3. No more than 3, and you'll be much better off. And it was so important that we finished off some of the developments that we'd done and finished them off well. We did that, and they have repaid us. Not only are they great homes for people to live in, but you can point and say, we built that, and people go, that's really good. We do want that in our village. We do want that in our town. And that repays itself. So yeah, we focus a lot on finishing off our developments and then getting a good pipeline. But we were also really clear about what we were going to do and what we weren't going to do. Yeah. it's so hard as a shaping organisation not to get sucked into trying to do everything.
Yeah.
So we came up with this plan that we would do things other than just rent homes. So we've got a cracking mental health service, but all our additional activity was based around accommodation. So we sold off, divested, all to good people, services that weren't really focused on our customers.
Yeah.
And retained those that were. So, we've got extra care schemes, we've got mental health schemes, we've got domestic refuge, we've got a young person's hostel, which I'm always really proud of. We're taking 16, 17-year-olds, really vulnerable young people, and giving them a bit of permanency in their life. So we focused on that, and we transferred away from the things that weren't core. And then we really, in conversations with our customers, we focused on investment in our existing homes. Because we had a really powerful meeting with some of our customers who they just said, and this is partly rural, they were frightened of winter. They were frightened of their bills. They went to bed at 6 o'clock at night because the warmest place was their bed. And that isn't anything to be proud of as a landlord. And if you think about it, 30% of our homes are not connected to mains gas. 23% of our homes never could be. Just there isn't a gas network to connect to. So that cheapest form of energy isn't available to 30% of our customers. So we started on an energy efficiency program. And now 1 in 8 of our homes has an air source heat pump.
Wow, that's amazing. I know we're going to unpack some of that as well later on. Yeah. But I think, what were some of the challenges? You said about the naughty step, but what were some of the big pivotal moments and challenges? And I suppose you've probably answered some of this, but what were some of the things that got you through them, and what were some of the things that you managed to overcome as a business?
I think it was the main one was the lack of join-uppedness. That's not a real word, is it? But,
we like it.
We had teams that were really trying to do the right thing, but they weren't allowing to other teams in the group. So we set out and we built ourselves a senior team, and my team all have what you would call cross-cutting themes. So they are the conscience of somebody else's job. Right. And that has meant the team, nobody's ever alone dealing with an issue. So for instance, the contact center is separate to the customer experience team. And you might think that's really weird, but actually it would never happen. But my customer experience director could be telling me, everything's fantastic, Gail, it's all going perfectly. But I've got the person responsible for the contact center going, those calls are going potty about X issue. Yeah. So as I say, I've never had to rely on that, but the fact that we've got 2 different sides to that coin in many different aspects, so health and safety spread across the whole team, everybody cares about it. It joins us all together. So I think that was one of the big changes. And then I think the other thing was just getting out and about. We were incredibly insular as an organisation. And which meant we'd got stuck in a time warp. We hadn't moved on because we weren't curious about what other people were doing. So we're not a follower, but we weren't just using those other ideas to go, oh, would that work for us? Or is that the right thing for us? So I think that those were the 2 big cultural changes.
Amazing. And just for the benefit of the listeners, obviously know this, but just give us a helicopter overview of the business or Broadacres as we stand here today, and then we'll unpick some of the things that you've done.
So we're in North Yorkshire, hence the map. It's the big map. North Yorkshire is, I think, the biggest county in England. Wow. It's one of the most super sparse areas. So although there's 610,000 people live in North Yorkshire, it's a big, big geographical area. Yeah. So if I was to drive from my furthest west home to my furthest east home, that would take me about 4 hours. Very little public transport, so I would have to drive it. Yeah. virtually all our homes are within that boundary. We do stray outside the boundary occasionally to do rural homes. So we don't stray out to go into York or into the Leeds region, because that's not our area of speciality. Our area of speciality is rural. So got about just over 6,700 homes. As I mentioned, a mixture of all sorts of types of homes. So not all family housing, got plenty of that, but we've got 4 extra care schemes, women's refuge, mental health services. And the other thing that really grounds us is, if you can see the map really clearly, we've got 2 national parks and 3 AONBs, areas of natural beauty. They bring great positives to the area, but a very specific set of challenges around planning.
Right.
You wouldn't turn up in the Yorkshire Dales to build something out of concrete, I assure you of that.
Interesting. I was going to ask you about this, actually. I mean, what have been some of your 4 hours? I still can't get my head around that, actually, thinking about that 4 hours. I can get to London nearly in 4 hours. But in terms of... it's crazy.
You can. Rail journeys, from North Allerton here, I can be in London in 2 hours and 20 minutes.
But you can't drive to the other end.
No.
What have you found some of the key fundamental challenges of being a rural housing provider?
I think in North Yorkshire, it is that dispersal of homes.
Yeah.
It really informs quite a lot. It has some great things in the sense of, when COVID came, we were already agile because we needed to be.
Yeah, cool.
So it wasn't a big step for us. We, like everybody, we moved faster to do some bits, but we could already work all over the county. But I think the things that rurality brings here is, I often have to, the very first thing I have to do is justify the need for affordable housing, because people sit there and they go, but it's Chocolate Box. I go on holiday there. There's not a need for affordable housing, Why? And I think it's that getting across. There's some really good research by an organisation called Pragmatics, that if you added up all the rural areas in the UK together, they would be the most economically deprived, 18% below the economic average. And when you think about it, I mean, my friends in North Yorkshire Council are working really hard on this, but connectivity, public transport, average wages are some of the lowest in the north of England. Lots of jobs that are quite insecure. So your tourism,
yeah, of course,
care,
and seasonal, some of them
seasonal, 0 hours contracts, a lot of food processing, a lot of farming. So lots of work in the summer when you're silaging away, but don't silage in December. So there's that bit in that rurality of actually persuading people that there is a challenge. And then, I think it was the Intergenerational Foundation the other week came up with some research that said there are dangers that certain parts of the rural part of the UK are becoming ghettos for the old. And I always say to people, okay, so the last time you visited, how many times do you think, oh, I'll just go to the pub? Oh, it's not open. Or I'll just stop in that. Oh, it's not open. Ask yourself why.
Yeah.
There is a declining workforce and an aging population, and that brings some real challenges.
Yeah, I interviewed someone, and I can't remember exactly where they were based, I won't say, but they were in the southwest. And you think of the southwest, don't you, and think everyone goes on holiday in Cornwall and it's beautiful. And the reality is that there's a massive affordable housing need in that area. Massive.
Yeah, massive.
So different to yourself. And how have you found that?
If you think about it, one of the things that happened post-COVID, well, several things happened in the housing market here. So Richmondshire, which is part of our heartland, 23% increase in house prices. Massive decline in private rent because landlords turfed people out and a massive increase in Airbnb.
Yeah, I've not even thought about Airbnb, but it must be a massive challenge from a community perspective and a mobility perspective. I'm just thinking from a rural perspective, public transport's poor. I presume you've had to digitalise some of your services, because I presume people can't get to your head office or your office like you would in a traditional housing association.
So we have, what we have with digital is customer chooses. That is one of our principles. Our nudge is to try and make our digital offer so good that people want to choose to use it. But if you think about it, awful lot of the time people phone us, it's because it's a problem. Now, even a repair is a problem to somebody. And I don't know about you, but I quite like the human touch. I like the reassurance that somebody has heard me. So even some of the simpler things, our customers like to be able to talk to us. So 62% of our customers, 62% of our contacts are still by phone, but we get a huge amount of satisfaction. Now, what we have to do is then use those phone calls wisely.
Yeah, of course.
And really, really fix the problem at that first point of contact. So our average call length is just over 3 minutes, but that is getting us real resolution, and giving us the opportunity, when we do sense that there's more, not to think, how quickly can I move the call on, but actually, I need to talk to this person for longer.
I was going to say, because I presume, I don't want to get into the granular on this necessarily, but I presume the diagnosing a repair is very important in your world, because you don't want to send someone doing the wrong job with the wrong skill set with the wrong equipment.
It's a long way to come back to Jewson's to collect. We work really hard on designing our van stocks. I'm not saying we get it right all the time, because you'd need a pantechnicon behind you to carry every sort of spare that you might ever need. But it is important that you really try and set off when you're going up to the Dales in the middle of winter when it's snowing, that you have got the right things with you.
And how have you managed to maintain that community focus? Because I suppose, like, what have been some of the tactics or approaches you've used to make sure that there is that sense of community, even though your stock is much sparser than other housing associations I've spoken to?
Yeah, I think we've done quite a lot of work with local community organisations. So the one really nice thing about North Yorkshire is it has a huge volunteer sector with really active volunteer groups. So what we do is we work very closely with them, because you're quite right, 6,500 homes. Where would I put that community hub?
Yeah.
We use our extra care schemes. We do invite people in, but even in Leyburn, 25 miles further on there to get up to Halls.
Yeah, you're not doing it, are you?
No, so actually tapping into those local organisations and making them part of a really important partnership, that's the way we do it.
Yeah. And how do you do from a keeping residents and tenants informed? I mean, what have you had to do to just make them still feel part of it? Because if they're not ringing you for a repair, again, problem, how do you keep them informed? How do you keep them understanding what's happening at Broadacres and what's the general strategy, corporate plan, what they're going to receive from you? How do you keep them informed in what's happening?
It's all the traditional things. We do have our annual report. We do still send out paper-based documents so that we know that gets to our customers. We have a lot of older people. Now, I'm not saying they're not online. Many of them are, but equally do quite like to read it. We send our documents out to places like doctors' surgeries and all the kind of places where you hang around waiting.
That's good.
Everything's online, of course, so can access online, but then again, use those community groups and the network. But also we engage quite closely with the local newspapers. People still read the local newspaper in North Yorkshire. Very important.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it every week to read and just find what's been happening.
I can't remember. There was something like
Darlington and Stockton Times.
That's it, Stockton Times. Yeah. And I know we talked about this a lot offline, but what's the difference for you between customer service and customer experience, and what does it mean to you, those two words?
That's stolen my evil question, and when I'm interviewing. because there's a huge difference. I hear people mix the two up, and it really bugs me. So customer service is the thing you set out to do: repair the tap, have the conversation about a relet, whatever it is. Customer experience is how you leave people feeling. And I always use an example because it was a customer that really grounded this for us. And she sort of described, she said, I always make the lads a cup of tea when they come because they'll do a better job. And I'm thinking, well, we have lasses that come out as well. And hopefully we don't need bribing with cups of tea. But it is very nice that people make us cups of tea because, of course, you're driving miles. But there was this time I'd broken my leg, and so I said to the lad, I'm really sorry, I can't make you a cup of tea. And she had real tears in her eyes when she said, you know what he said to me at that point? He said, do you want me to make you one, love? Oh. And she was just like, he'd really noticed. And he made me a cup of tea. He said, that was great. He said, ages later, different repair, legs mended, everything's fine. But the person came in, they did show the badge, they did put the blue shoes on, but there was something, and I didn't feel comfortable. And I followed them around in my house because they made me feel uncomfortable in my house. And if you reflect on those experiences, they turned up on time, they'd done the repair. But one experience left somebody with tears in their eye of joy and just sheer, oh my word. And one left somebody feeling uncomfortable in their home. And that's why we focus on customer experience, because the customer service should be a given.
Yeah, I agree with that. And do you know what? I've never thought of it that way, but both of those acts actually took exactly the same amount of time, really, when you think about it, didn't they? To be honest, like they were not broadly different. How do you encourage?
So for me, for us, it's really important about our recruitment. We always have values panels because we're looking for the kind of people who are going to give experience that people go, oh, it was great. They really noticed me.
How do you allow your management teams to allow their teams to spend that extra few moments to add those special touches? Like, is it a cultural thing? Is it something, like you said, around the value set? But there's a bit of bravery in letting someone spend that little bit more time to make the experience better, isn't there?
Yeah, and it's not really that brave, is it? I mean, we're not talking about every second customer wants that kind of experience, but it's being polite, isn't it? It's turning up with a smile on your face. It's being engaging, not just come to fix. I mean, it's just I always say to people, you don't think experience matters? Think about that time you went to the pub and somebody came out with a meal and went, who ordered fish and chips?
Yeah.
Oh, it was me over there. And then they lean over and slam it down in front of you. Well, the food was probably great, but
the experience was
and then you go to some other places where they walk out, the six of you, you've ordered six different things, and they know exactly that Gail ordered fish and chips, Frank ordered pie and chips, and they just walk around and quietly place in front of you, and you go, wow. I don't know how they do it. I really don't. But that's it's just, if you think about experience, if you just sit back and think about when did you leave something with a smile on your face, that's when somebody gave you a customer experience, not a customer service.
And there's another angle to that, isn't there? That some of that tradesperson could have been the only person that resident's seen in 3 days. Potentially. I'm not saying that's definitely, but could be.
Yeah.
And so that 10-minute conversation could be their only conversation that week, which is the big thing we all forget. I think we forget a lot of the time is there's a loneliness thing that happens where customer service and customer experience is a massive thing in that, isn't it?
Yeah. And we have something called our SOS service. So anybody who's going into homes can literally just press an app and call it up and say, I've been to this house, I am concerned, whatever it is, safeguarding, whatever it is. And that is so important, because you can sit and analyze data, and we do, but actually just eyes on the ground and go, there's something
doesn't
not
feel right
there.
Yeah. So important. It's a really great thing to think about that. I've not spoken about it before, but actually customer experience is everything. It's the small little touches that add up to a really good service rather than just a good service.
And that's where I count myself lucky, because you're saying, well, what's your helicopter view of Broadacres? One of the things I am so lucky about is we employ directly are the vast majority of our property repairs service and our cleaning and our catering. And I've got an amazing cleaning team and an amazing catering team. They just care so much, and they're really passionate about what they do, and so are the property services team. And that really came out in COVID. It just was, they all went above and beyond. They were all really proud of what they achieved, and they should be.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And, I read when I was doing research for this that you've released a new corporate plan. So I presume it's actually 5 years. So you've just finished your old one, haven't you? So where's the business since that? Noticed it step then. Why would you describe you today before you release your new corporate plan?
I think we're forward thinking. We'd like to think, our vision is to be the best rural housing association. Well, I mean, how do you measure that? And you get into all sorts of things. But I think we're certainly, we've got ideas, and we're not frightened to speak up and say, this is really important. So we do influence. So that's really important. But yeah, as we launch our next corporate strategy, I've called it evolution, not revolution. The last one was the revolution. It wasn't clear. This is evolution. It's building on what we've done. So continue to build homes. We're going to set out to build 1,000 over the next 5 years. Well on the way. We will get all our homes to SAP C or better by 2028, and we'll just continue to develop that community and connection with our stakeholders. So those are the three sort of really big things.
Yeah, I read about decarbonisation, massive focus. Talk to me about the housing stock then, because I'm conscious of, in a rural organisation like yours, I bet you've got all sorts of different properties, like you said. So, what was the condition of those properties from a carbon perspective or an emissions perspective? Did you have everything, or were some pretty well EPC band C and below?
There was a bit of everything, really. But when I joined, we had already bought a tool called Portfolio, and we were already trying to map the energy efficiency of our homes. And I think we use terms like energy efficiency and net zero interchangeably, and they are very different things.
Agreed.
So we've had much more of a focus on energy efficiency, and we're moving towards decarbonisation. So on energy efficiency, driven totally by customers. If you think about it, 5 years ago, they were telling us, I worry about my bills. What do you think people do now? Now, I can't control the cost price per unit of energy, but I can do my very best for this organisation to make sure you need as little energy as possible to stay warm. And that's been our focus. But yeah, we have solid wall construction. We've got beautiful stone built houses up in the Dales. But we've also got very conventional homes that you would see across the country. And what we set out to do was get a shopping list of things to do if you have this archetype of home, so that it becomes really straightforward. If we're trying to renovate that type of home, this is what we do. What you will see if you ever look at our accounts is our relet times are unusual. They are long, but we set out to put massive rewire program, try to take as much asbestos out as we can, often fit in air source heat pumps. Not to say we aren't looking to be more efficient, but we spend a lot of money when our homes become empty, and it takes us a long time. But equally, the payback is when we let those homes, we very rarely get repairs. The only repairs we tend to get are around heating systems, which of course, if you don't know that at 10 o'clock at night it clanks because it's built up some pressure, and it's only when you've got them switched on 24 hours and you're living in the home that you experience that. And we get the level of satisfaction with our new homes is like 94%. That's with our relet homes, not our brand new homes. So
And it's proactive maintenance, isn't it? You probably do less repairs as a result, and you don't want to be out doing repairs if you can avoid it given the geography.
Yeah.
So it all works. How
Well,
big
if
of a role?
we want people, we want people to be proud of their home.
Yeah.
And if you think you've just got the keys to your home and you're renting it, and there's this thing in this country about if you don't own it, you're a second-class citizen. Well, how do you remove stigma? Stigma at that point is I've moved in, but I'm not really telling anybody what I've moved into. Or it's come round and see my house and look at it. And that's what we want. We want people to have curb appeal and be able to say to their neighbours, their friends, come round and see.
Exactly.
I'm proud to live here.
Yeah, and what have been some of the measures? I know everyone's tackled this decarbonisation, energy efficiency stuff in a different way, but have you gone down a fabric route? Like, what have been some of the tactics that you've adopted to try and help?
It's fabric first.
Okay.
So you won't actually see many photovoltaic cells on our homes. That's not because we don't believe in them. They're relatively expensive, but what you would see is masses of insulation, dealing with thermal bridging, which actually you can't see, but they're the really difficult things. You'll see a rewire program because you can't run air source heat pumps off old electrics. You see all that kind of thing because our view is we can go back round, and if all the wiring is in the roof, it's dead easy. You don't even need to get in. You can go back round and do a PV program, really straightforward. So we're working on the principle that will come down in price, and we can go back round and do that. Which is why a lot of our homes are high SAP B but not SAP A, because we know we can go around and do that work, and that will lift them up the last little notch.
And what's been there? Because you mentioned about bills, and it's a massive thing. Cost of living crisis is the biggest problem that we're facing as a sector. Have you had much feedback from customers that have had their homes done or renovated? What's been some of the feedback you've had, and sort of how has it gone down with customers?
So people say, oh, yes, they're expensive and all the rest of it. Now, if you've got solid electric storage heaters, believe you me, an air source heat pump is so much better. And also compared to, so for many of our people that are off gas, if you have oil or LPG, you can only buy that by the tank full. So you can't buy electricity like on a direct debit and pay a steady amount every month and think I can plan for that.
Yeah.
No, the van turns up, it fills up your LPG carrington and says you needed 300 litres and I'm charging you 84 pence today. And you can't negotiate that, but take it back out. Oh my God, I can't. And that is really scary. So when we put air source heat pumps in, people can plan. So it's not only that it's a more affordable energy source, but you can plan.
How I'm always intrigued on this question, but how much education do we need as a sector to allow people to use the products we're putting into their houses effectively? Because obviously there's a damper mold issue in the country, and that's clearly a direct link, in my opinion, to people not using their heating.
Yeah,
so
can't afford to switch it on. Yeah.
How do we educate customers to use their heating appropriately so that they don't end up with damper mold issues, etc.?
So I always say our X factor in our retrofit program are our 3 liaison officers who work with customers all the way through the process, before, during and after, to help them. And they go above and beyond to make sure that people, when they're going, I don't understand, or I know you explain, but can you just explain it to me again? Because it is a huge leap of faith, isn't it?
It is.
I'm cold, or I'll turn it up, or I haven't got any money, I'll turn it down.
Yeah.
And actually, no, air source heat pumps work best if you just let them trickle along in the background. Yeah. That is a huge leap of faith. So, we work really well. And if customers say, I don't want it, we don't force them to have it.
No, I remember my grandma had one fitted and she just didn't understand it. I mean, she's not a technology person. She didn't understand what was going on. So it's like, didn't really have a benefit because she didn't get educated on how to realistically use it. And like you say, it's better just being in the background, keep trickling along rather than on, off, and off.
And it helps if you've done other work. So we talk about fitting air source heat pumps, but it's a bit of it's a catch-all term because we won't just fit that. We will sort out the insulation.
Absolutely,
we might we're beginning to fit triple glazing. We might fit a new front door, and all the things where we will look with a thermal imaging camera about where are we losing heat in that home, and try and fix all that as well as fitting the air source heat pump. But I mean, in our new builds where we've put air source heat pumps in, people are saying it's rarely operating. Yeah, it's on, but it's rarely operating because they're so warm.
That's good. And a couple of other things that I was just interested in. How big of a role does business intelligence play in your business and data? I hardly ever talked about this 10 years ago. Now all of a sudden it's the big thing. But how has that informed your decisions? And secondly, how has it allowed you to personalise the service that you offer to customers?
So I suppose it is my background coming from that commercial world. I have to say, when I entered housing world, it was one of my sort of, you don't mention that. You don't know how many, all right, it was an FD thing, but I mean, I worked in lots of cash-strapped businesses, and it was how much brass have we got every morning? How much, what we're going to collect today, what we're going to spend today. So that lack of data, how many phone calls did we get yesterday? How what's our complaints? People never talked about it, did they? So I've always wanted to know more, because I think if you know more, you can make better informed decisions and make that finite pot of money go further. So as an organisation, we really embrace data, and people get bored of me saying data's one thing. Data used well gives you information. Information used well gives us insight. And what we want is real insight. But we talk about knowing our homes and knowing our customers. And that's that bit, isn't it? If you look at our corporate strategy, one of the things in our corporate strategy is that every home will have its own plan to bring it up to energy efficiency levels. Wow. It will have its own decarbonisation plans, because decarbonisation is different to energy efficiency. And that's our plan, because you can go onto an estate and they're all nominally the same houses, but I hate the word cloning, because there's absolutely no reason why number 23 and number 46 are the same when they were built 50 years ago. Just not.
So true.
And equally, you need to know your customers, because how the air source heat pump will be used will be very different if you're working from home, if you're old and you live at home all the time, compared to people who are holding down 2-3 jobs and are out nearly all the time. It's just, you can't just make assumptions.
No. That's really true. And I noticed, and you mentioned it just a minute ago, around building 1,000 homes in the next 5 years. Is that right? How important is that in the area? I mean, I'm interested to understand the need in the area, because people will watch this and they'll go, they don't really need any new homes up in North Yorkshire because it's such a beautiful part of the world. Not true, as you know. But also
it's
kind of
beautiful.
Like,
I'll give you that.
I know.
That's true.
But how important is it in addressing the housing crisis we're facing in the UK, would you say?
I think it's really important, because actually the lack of homes, affordable homes in North Yorkshire, holds the economy back. It's bad for communities. If we end up with all the grey pound and only old wealthy people being able to afford to live here and retire here, that's wonderful. I can understand their aspiration, but then how do you deliver care in North Yorkshire if nobody can afford to live here? You have to bus people in. Well, that's not good for the environment, and it's not good. It costs the local council a fortune to bus people around to do care. I mean, we talk about the fact we do 1 million miles a year to do our repair service. I don't even want to ask North Yorkshire Council how many miles they do to deliver their care service. Wow. Huge. So it is very important. And actually, the thing that's subtly different is, yes, in our market towns and our coastal towns, building an estate of 100 homes makes sense. But actually building 5-10 homes in a small village can be the difference between the school staying open and closing.
Yeah, wow.
Or the local shop, the pub being able to function because the chef can live nearby. All these things, it's very circular. And if you miss out housing, then, people are shocked. They've closed the school. Well, yeah, no children can afford to live nearby.
7 people there, yeah.
We had a scheme that opened in a village, which we built in partnership with a local builder. 9 of his homes, market sale, 8 went to the Grey Pound, 1 went to one family. Our 8 homes all went to working families.
Amazing.
Nearly every house has got a child in the local school.
Yeah, it's really, you never really think of it that way. I'm glad that I asked that, because I think of North Yorkshire like everyone else, like I thought when I interviewed someone from the Southwest, and just think, yeah, affluent, Airbnbs, there would be no need, but there is obviously a need, and there's a clear need. And, these seasonal places such as South Wales, North Yorkshire, you can actually only have an economy there in the summer and nothing in the winter.
So it makes sense, and it makes sense on so many levels. It's the right thing to do, but it's also economically the right thing to do. Yeah, as we're forever telling the Prime Minister whenever you.
and as we wrap up, and the final thing for me was just like, do you foresee any big shifts in the UK housing market in the next sort of 5-10 years, should we say? And what are some of the key challenges you think Broadacres might face in that sort of period of time?
There are so many challenges, aren't there? But I think there's 2. There's the demographic time bomb that's been talked about for so long, and it has gone off, hasn't it? We are trying to deliver services to more and more an aging population with a smaller workforce, and at the same time, we're asking that workforce to learn new skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
Such as the air source heat pump, the energy, all that green technology, it's all new. Those IT skills, So where are we going to get the people from? So that's for Broadacres is one of the challenges. Is we wish to expand that work we do, but where do you get those green skills from? And then I think the other big challenge we're facing is climate change has truly arrived. I'd like to think people have accepted it. Whether you can argue about whether it's man-made or what's driving it, I'm not bothered. But actually, it's here.
It is here.
And what we see for Broadacres is, flooding in areas where you wouldn't traditionally see it. Overheating potentially. We're planning more and more for. We talk about keeping warm, but actually, it was 40 odd degrees in North Yorkshire last year, which is just madness. And our biggest struggle at that point was, how do we keep our people in our extra care schemes cool? So we've wrapped everything in insulation, and now how do we open the windows? So I think those 2 things are going to be hugely challenging. I know everyone mentions money, and in a way, because I'm not the accountant, I don't mention the money. It's obvious you've got to pay for these changes. But I always say to people, we've got enough money to start. We don't necessarily have enough money to finish, but let's worry about finishing when we've got 3/4 of the way through. So let's start. And that's our big thing. Let's get started. And actually, because we started doing our energy efficiency way back in 2018, we're pretty confident we'll get there by 2028.
Amazing. And I think it's a really nice way to end, actually, because I think you've done some tremendous work in the 5 years. You must be really proud to lead such a good organisation in an area that has definitely got its nuances and challenges in the sense of it being rural. But I think it's really interesting to see sort of the journey that you've taken, but also still being very ambitious in building new homes, decarbonisation agenda, etc. So I've loved the insights, and certainly I'm sure everyone's going to get loads of value from it. But I think you may be one of the only rural housing associations that could take 4 hours coast to coast. So
but still a place shaper, because we're still in one.
But thank you very much for your time, Gail.
Thank you very much, James. Nice speaking to you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Hip. If you'd like to hear more from us, please be sure to follow us on your favourite podcast platform. We are also running a 30-minute clinic free of charge to any clients that want to recruit in a more inclusive way. For more information, please reach out to us on our website, andersonjames.com.